All right, Western Hills Water District meeting of the Board of Directors, Wednesday, November 10th, 2021, 6:30 p.m., 6:31 p.m. And we're reconvening from open session. There is no reportable actions that were taken during closed session. So we're going to move on to motion approving the consent calendar. All matters listed here under shall be acted upon by a single vote of the board. There will be no individual discussion of these items unless a member of the board or the public so requests, in which event the matter shall be removed from the consent calendar and considered as a separate agenda item. So motion to approve the October 2021 checks and warrants and approval of the minutes of the regular meeting from October 13th, 2021 and the special meeting of November 3rd, 2021.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, aye. Okay, moving on to action items. Consideration and approval of resolution number 2021-19, resolution of the Western Hills Water District regarding approval of the expenditure of approximately $50,000 of Diablo Grande Community Facilities District Number 1 Melrose Bond refinance proceeds for the payment of immediate water district expenses. Do I have a second?
It looks like Chris is muted.
Sorry, guys, you're right. Thank you, Linda. I will second that. I also seconded the prior one and agreed to it, just for the record.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, and then moving on, consideration and approval of resolution number 2021-20, resolution of the Western Hills Water District, making findings in accordance with AB 361 and Government Code Section 54953E, authorizing remote meetings. David, would you like to help the board and the community understand this particular resolution?
Sure. This is a bit of a housekeeping matter. As everyone knows, out of COVID and the governor's state of emergency, some of the Brown Act items in particular related to teleconferencing meetings and quorums within the boundaries of the district were relaxed. In order to be able to continue to have these meetings via teleconference, the board is required to make a finding that COVID and exigent circumstances still exist for holding a full in-person only meeting in the district, and the resolution as a finding of such. And frankly, since we don't really know where the district, if it even has an office available that would hold everybody, I think that the grounds for the emergency would exist. The resolution is good for 30 days, at which point to hold another Zoom meeting, we'll have to make another finding of an emergency due to COVID.
All right, do we want to have an approval of that resolution 2021-22, resolution of the Water District considering the approval? Oh, sorry, wait a minute, got that mixed up. Consideration and approval of resolution number 2021-21. -20. Which one is it? Sorry, guys.
-20.
-20.
Yeah, -20.
Yeah.
My computer's all flipping out. Consideration and approval of resolution number 2021-20, the resolution of the Water District making findings in accordance with the AB 361 and Government Code Section 5495-E, authorizing remote meetings. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right. Now we're at point C. Consideration and approval of resolution number 2021-21, resolution of the Western Hills Water District approving Stanislaus County election cost estimate and requesting Stanislaus County to set the date for the district election. And once again, David, would you help the board as well as the community understand this resolution?
Sure. As everyone recalls, Western Hills Water District had been a landowner voting district, and the district was responsible for conducting its own elections. On May 24th, 2021, some Diablo Grande residents petitioned to have basically it converted from a landowner to a resident voting election. That petition was certified by the Stanislaus County Register of Voters. The way the water code works is once that was returned to the district as approved by the county, the board was then required to adopt a resolution which it did on July 14th, that would then convert the district from landowner to a resident voting district. Once that resolution was adopted, it was the water district became a resident voting district. Because the district could no longer conduct elections, it fell to Stanislaus County. They are not able to hold an election this year by November 2021, obviously. We reached out to them to get a cost estimate to reimburse them for them to conduct the election as we're required. They came back and told us essentially that if Western Hills elected to have it rolled into the next November 2022 general election, it would cost $1,800. If we had a special election, it would cost around $28,000 just for Western Hills. So we're requesting to have it held on November of next year. And one of the things that we're also pointing out is that the water code looks like it allows for the director's terms to continue to that date, because by operational law, there would be no qualified successors to take their place. Alternatively, to the extent that the Board of Supervisors wish to do so, we're asking them to either extend 4 of the current directors or appoint as they deem necessary.
All right. I will open up to comments from the community if anybody has a question regarding this. It's going to be 1 minute to ask a question or make a comment with 1 minute, 30 seconds. Krista, our board secretary, will chime in around 1 minute to let you know that you're at 1 minute, and then you'll have 30 seconds to finish up, and then you will be muted. The reason we're doing this tonight is the last board meeting in October went to almost 11 o'clock at night, and out of respect for each and every one of you, putting kids to bed, eating dinner, all the things you have to do, there's a lot on the docket tonight, and we want to kind of move expeditiously through. So we're asking for everybody's cooperation in the 1 minute, 30 second. And we also have Linda, our board member who lives in Tennessee now, and she is 2 hours ahead of us.
Well,
we wanna be-
I'm back and forth. I'm back and
Yeah,
forth.
back and forth. But you're in Tennessee right now, right?
Right now I am.
Yeah. So we want to be respectful, 2 hours ahead as well for her. So everybody, anybody has a question? We've got Owana, go ahead.
Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. I actually
Hello.
had a question for Linda, seeing how she has moved her residence and her house is empty and up for sale. How are you still holding seat on this board? As it is resident based.
Well, I am back and forth. That's like I just said. So I still own my home there. Yes, it is up for sale, but we are back and forth. And right now we're just waiting for what's going to happen in the future.
So you're not required to actually live and reside up here in the community?
Well, who says I don't?
Well, your house is empty, babe.
Well, I know that, but I can go back and forth, and I do come back and forth. And when I am there, I am at the house.
Okay,
I
clearly makes
still have
perfect
water
sense.
there. I still have electricity there. I still have food there. I still have a fridge there. I still have.
It's a bit technical, isn't it, Owana?
I just think it's a little bit frivolous to go ahead and call her a board member when she actually doesn't reside in the community and her house is up for sale. Just a thought.
Well, I think she does
Something to open
reside
that up.
here.
Well,
I think it's
especially
frivolous to
since you
bring it
guys
up.
are, here's the thing, especially since you guys are extending your stay on this board for another year without the community actually having a say on any of this. I think it's everybody's right in our community to have a concern about a non-resident being on a resident-run board. Is that not a concern to anybody else?
She's still a resident with a vested interest in this community.
That's debatable. That's all I have for now. I'm sure I'll be back.
Ms. Coleman.
Oh, thank you for unmuting me. You know, I appreciate that you mentioned today about the county's alleged certification as a residential district on June 18th. The certification was never included or made available to the public until the posting of today's agenda. We've reviewed all the board agendas and other posted materials, and we could not locate this certification as required. The certification and any subsequent actions taken were never publicly available. Angels Crossing has and continues to assert that directors Z. Manning, Blessing, and Culpers were improperly seated via appointment in violation of applicable law, citing to the Government Code Section 10004 and Henry Hoffaker versus Board of Supervisors at 264 Calip 2nd 290. And Thelma Jean Robson versus Upper San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District at 142 Calap 4th 877. It's a lot of jargon for putting on the record in front of all of the residents, but it does seem as though it is improper for appointed board members who have never been elected by the public at all to suddenly have their terms extended. And I would like to know what the authority is for that, because I can't find any authority at all. The proposed action on today's agenda is contrary to the laws
You
of
have
the
30
state of
seconds
California.
left.
Oh, thank you. The proposed resolution grants authority to a board not legally seated to extend terms and not proceed with an election as required by law. I would point you to Elections Code Section 1304 and Water Code Section 34025. As the majority landowner in the district, Angels Crossing objects to this resolution in its entirety and the disenfranchisement of landowners and residents and continual violation of our constitutional rights.
Thank
We
you.
had a right to have the election on November 2nd. If the district had followed the proper protocol, it would have been a landowner election as well.
I'd just like to respond to that really quickly. Ms. Coleman, if you go back and look at the July 14th resolution in that agenda, this certification by the county is a specific exhibit to the agenda. It was duly noticed. It was included as part of the public package. It's been published in the Patterson Irrigator. It's been communicated to the county. It's simply by operational law, and the water code automatically switches it. I'd be happy to address all your authorities at the proper situation, the proper format, but this public meeting obviously isn't that. But I see you sent me an email, and I'll respond to that accordingly. So thank you.
All right. All right. So approval. Make a motion for an approval of resolution number 2021-21, resolution of the Western Hills Water District approving Stanislaus County election cost estimate, which was the, was it 1,800?
Yep.
Yeah, 1,800. And requesting Stanislaus County to set the date for the district election. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Moving on to point D, consideration and approval of resolution number 2021-22, resolution of the Western Hills Water District considering approval of the HF&H water rate study, Proposition 218 public notice, and setting a date, time, and location for the public hearing for the proposed increase in the water rates. So I'm going to have Chris do a little recap presentation. So for everyone, we've started this process clear back in February, and we've moved through the months. And in last month, October's meeting, meeting that went very late, all of the directors tossed back and forth ideas, and we came to a conclusion with the current rate study that we have published. And so we're going to have Chris recap that. For the 218, we also published what that public notice looks like. The hearing and public hearing date is also mentioned in that letter, but it will be January the 12th. It is the second Wednesday in January, and I believe it's 6:30 p.m. So that's the date, guys, for that, the date and time of the public hearing. And so the challenge forms will be mailed out when we count backwards 45 days from January 12th. That puts us somewhere right around the 29th of November. But because of Thanksgiving and everything, we're going to try to get those mailed out sooner than that. So we will be getting those in the mail to all homeowners. So you will be receiving the 218 challenge ballot in the mail. So I just want to let everybody know that will happen if this is approved tonight. And I'm going to let Chris take it away for the presentation. For those of you that have seen this presentation many times, please hang in there for it again. For those of you that are new to the community, and this may be the first time you're seeing why we have to do a rate increase, I hope this will help answer your questions. Again, once the presentation is over, we will open up for 1 minute, 30-second questions or comments, and we will get through that, and then we will have our vote. So Chris, take it away.
Thank you, Matt. And let me just get this presented. How does that look?
Looks great.
Excellent. So this is a slightly modified version of the prior presentation I gave. It's not all old news, but hopefully it's clearer as to why we have to do this rate increase. We'll start with a little recap of how we got here. So the district established an agreement with Kern Water County Agency in June 2000. Diablo Grande LP went bankrupt in 2008. World International picked up the property in 2009. And Angels Crossing was transferred the property from World International in April 2020. The original master plan calls for 5,000 homes. That's 2,000 in Village 1, which is where we all live right now. And last count, it was like 589 homes or something along those lines. Bottom line is we don't have enough homes here to support this district fully. And that's why we're severely underfunded, not only because of lack of development, because of lack of subsidy from the landowner developer. So a little bit about how the district was managed. In 2019, World indicated it was no longer going to subsidize this district. So basically pulling the plug on all of our financial well-being. Same year, World stopped making golf course water payments for about $515,601. Some of you may really remember that's noted in the AAR. In April of 2020, AC acquired Diablo Grande from World and agreed to fund the subsidy moving forward, also agreed that they would pay World's delinquent water bill. Those amounts, also delinquent to KCWA and Patterson, were also included in that, as well as AC's own water bill for golf course watering. None of that's been paid to date. Late 2020, Ranch course was shut off for water because of non-payment by the owner, and that's basically where we stand today. So getting into the good stuff that we want to actually talk about, the current bills that you guys receive, that we all receive as residents here, includes a base rate and a usage rate for every unit of water, or also known as 750 gallons of water that you use at your residence. There's also a flat fee for storm drain and a flat fee for sewer, $5.55.97 respectively. Let's talk for a moment about money again for the district. So as you can see here, in 2020, there was zero subsidy and zero golf course revenue. That pretty much left us with a loss of almost $2.4 million, 2.35 if you want to round it a little closer. And as you can see here, that historically the district has run at a $1.5 to $2.5 million loss every year. A lot of that has been offset by golf course revenue and subsidy money that World was paying into the district for some time. that all ceased at the end of 2019, and 2020 really put a hurting on us financially. This is just a visual of what we just looked at, basically all the contributions by year halves. And you can just see with the trend line there, how everything slopes off to zero at the end.
Hey, Chris, can I interrupt? Does
Sure.
Mark want to jump in and talk about any of this as well? Our treasurer?
Mark, you are free to interrupt me at any time.
No, you're doing a good job, Chris. Everything there is factual.
Thanks. But do interrupt me, feel free. Here's a little table about what it costs to run the district. This is basically the entire year of 2020. And it just goes to show you exactly what we're dealing with here. We have, $1.3 million that we can't pay to Kern for the water that we're using. We have $600,000 in labor and salaries and such. There's a whole bunch of other line items here, as you can see. And that's where we get our operating costs from. Some of you may have seen the budget that Mark presented a couple of meetings ago. And that has all the fine level detail you could possibly ask for as far as these expenses go. But it's not cheap to run a district, I think everybody realizes that. And when you're facing these kinds of amounts of money and you don't have the money itself to pay for them, the debts add up very quickly and in extreme amounts. And that's what we're doing right now. That's what we're facing. So what are we actually doing to fix this? Right now, as many of you know, there's ongoing NDA covered contract negotiations with Kern and the city of Patterson. The district, we, the board, have filed liens against all AC owned property in Stanislaus County for the money they owe. We've filed the foreclosure suits and against World and any other property holders who owe Melrose taxes. That's to protect our bondholders. We're compelled to do that. We're obligated to do that as a district for our bondholders. And we are optimizing costs, doing things like getting rid of the, $3,000 a month trailer and trimming down expenses wherever we can while continuing to maintain quality of service. So let's talk a little bit about the new rate structure. Some people have been thrown off by this tiered system, but I'm going to attempt to explain it as best I can here. As you can see, the water base rate will increase from $169 to $134.99. That base rate will be for everyone who is a customer here, who is a residential customer. Then what we have is, instead of a flat fee per unit of water as a water usage charge, we have 4 tiers, and each tier is priced a little bit higher as you get up in terms of usage. Now, we'll get into the calculator in a moment to show you what some examples look like, but the chart here on the right, the table on the right, is directly out of the 2021-22 resolution, directly out of the rate study from our consultants. I don't really know how else to say it except that going to this tiered system is not only a way for the district to capture more revenue, obviously, but it's also a way to illustrate conservation and, encourage conservation, I should say, in terms of usage, because now the more you use, the more expensive the water does get. I think in all fairness, that's pretty fair. So here's a kind of a concrete example, although I just made it up, and a little bit more about the tiers. You have to think of the tiers as buckets. So you fill up one bucket at tier 1, and then you move on to fill up tier 2, move on to fill up tier 3. I realize that example is poignant given that we're a water district, but that's exactly how they work here. So let's just say, for example, you use 18 units of water in 1 month. Under the current situation with the current billing at the flat rate, you would pay $26.82 in usage. In the tiered system, you're going to pay $1.88 for the first 6 units. You're going to pay $2.57 for the next 7 units, and then you're going to pay $3.21 for the last 5 units. That makes 18 units. Your new water cost is $45.32, a change of $18.50. Not too extreme. And I would like to point out that, let's see, 18 units, that's about 14,000 gallons, 13.5. Doing rough math here, that's pretty good usage for residents, depending on how many people you have there. So pretty realistic example. Just in case anybody doesn't know yet, even though I've been plugging it on social media, we do have this rate calculator up on the website these days. And I'm going to take us to that right now. And we will look at a few more examples of what new bills might look like. So allow me to just stop this for a second. Okay, here we go. For everyone's information, you find it under the billing tab at the top, and you click on billing calculator. And we've also provided some documents here if you care to peruse those while you're thinking about your charges. But this screenshot here is actually my bill from last month. So I'll just plug that number in right now, $16.70. That's what I paid for water, independent of the base charge. You can see that comes out to 8,400 gallons, approximately 11 units. My bill that month was exactly $178.36. In the tiered system, I'm going to pay a little bit more for water. So instead of paying $16.70, I'm going to pay $24.67, plus the base rate increase, of course. Let's not forget that. So in all actuality, my water costs are only going up about $8 here. The total bill, of course, includes sewer and storm drain. We can't forget that. That's almost, it's over $60 worth of the bill. So my bill will be going from $178.36 to $220.63 under this scenario. Let's say you're a really low usage water person. Maybe you only use 3 or 4 units of water per month. I'll just put in, let's call it $6. 4 units per month. Your old bill, your old usage was $6. Your new usage is $7.58. Again, the base rate has gone up, so your bill is going to go up, but it's $203.54 versus $167.66. Difference of about $35. Let's say you're a high usage resident and maybe you paid, I don't know, $30 for water last month. That's 20 units, over 15,000 gallons. If you look at the rate study, by the way, the consultants were very diligent about categorizing low, medium, and high usage residents based on historical data. So when I say high usage for $30 water usage, I'm not just pulling that from anywhere. That's actual data backing that up. However, I know there are people who use more water than that, and that's understandable. We'll get into that calculation in a moment. At $30, your prior bill is $191.66, and you paid $30 for water. Under the new tiered system, you're just getting into tier 4 here, as you can see. But tier 3 is also kind of expensive, right? $3.21 a unit, and you've maxed that out. So now you're being charged $52.44 for the water instead of $30, $22.44 more, plus the base rate increase. I'm going to keep driving that home. Let's say you're a very high usage water residence, 45,000 gallons, 60 units. Previously, you're paying $251.66, but now you're getting into tier 4, and tier 4 is where a lot of the costs are going to be for very high usage users. So this looks pretty drastic. I will admit that is completely true. $251.66 to $466.67. That's $215 right there and a penny. But this is a very outlier type of case. I highly doubt many of you sitting here listening to me right now use this much water in 1 month. So ideally, outliers might conserve a little bit more. They'd be able to pull down this tier 4 cost and control the bill a little bit better. So let me jump back to my presentation. All right, and I promise we're almost done. So this is a carryover slide from the last prezo. I just wanted to show you what the consultants gave us. They essentially gave us an estimate that the new rates would bring in an additional $480,000 worth of revenue for the district. We're currently only making $930,000 a year with over $3 million in bills to pay. So it's pretty dire. This extra, let's call it 500K, really goes a long way in helping us limit the amount of money that we borrow from the Melrose refinance funds that we have right now. And Mark, I'm happy for you to jump in here if you want to say anything about that, but those funds are limited. Those funds will not last forever. And at the current rate of borrowing, which, as most of you know, if you've been following along, is anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a month, that fund will deplete at some point, and we will not have operational money to continue things like water production and paying our employees. An extra 500K a year really kicks the can down the road a long ways. And it's a little bit of a burden that we all shoulder as a result. I understand that. Not going to sit here and point fingers because I've been told not to do that by so many of you so many times, but don't forget how we got in this position. It's at the very beginning of this presentation.
Chris,
Go ahead, Mark.
Go ahead.
I'd like to speak up first about the approximate $480,000, because we know that it's not for sure. And even at 480, there's still going to be shortfalls that we're going to have to borrow from Melrose potentially. And if our higher usage customers take this as an initiative to start conserving water, we're not going to get that extra kicker for the district as far as the additional revenue, which is going to potentially impact this 480 number. And also take in consideration the winter months when every household basically uses, I would imagine, about 5,000 gallons a month. So as the treasurer of the water district, to let the community know, the 480 is not a guarantee.
That's right.
It's dependent upon, usage and, how much water is actually consumed in the summertime and in the wintertime. And personally, I have a lot of concern about it overall, nonetheless. So I just wanted to say that and let the community know about that. Julie, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to mention a few things because this is quite a lot of stuff that we've had to try to take in and digest. And I appreciate, Chris, all your hard work. And I know everybody's working hard and we're all working kind of on different things. But since we have to address all of this, we have to do all of this in open meetings. I do have some concern, just like Mark. And Mark and I have been talking, and here's some of the things. When we are looking at the fixed rate costs to run this district, what we're doing by going into tiered use is we're basically breaking that up for a fixed cost. It's not going to cover. So when you're looking at tier 4 that you have up on the screen, it says the volumetric rate, you're anticipating $275,000 of income. Then that would come up to the $480,000 in revenues. The problem that I think is going to happen is we're a little bit different of a district. We had to conserve water this year, basically because our water was cut short, and we're also in a drought. But at times we're not in a drought. We generally had water, and we have minimum costs to run this district, the size of the district, the pumping costs, the employees, everything, just to keep it open. If we ask for water conservation, obviously, especially putting these prices out there, we're going to definitely get it. So I wanted to just make a couple of points. Is that $275,000 that this district desperately needs? I think there's a big chance that's going to be lowered by a lot. And that's not going to be, you know, pushed down into those other tier levels. It's just going to be completely wiped out. I think that's number one. And if you wipe out half of that, you know, over a 5-year period, you're talking an $800,000 deficit. My concern is that when you look at the numbers, you have like just fixed costs, $1,047,605. Then you have $338,000 for pumping costs. This doesn't even include the purchase of water. You have some other things, the putting into the, you know, for reserves or any purchases or the vehicles. I feel that I understand the tiered rate structure. We did speak with HF&H. They did say the tiered rate structure is always geared towards water conservation. The reason I feel this doesn't necessarily apply to Diablo Grande is because we have fixed rate costs that we have to make sure we have. This is a great thing if we have fixed rate costs that cover all the fixed rates, and then we're actually on a tier level for water purchases, in my opinion. But I feel that this is, I'm very concerned about this, like Mark. I really am not a proponent of these tiered rate structures. I feel that we would be better off having a fixed rate across the board to make sure that we can cover as much of the fixed rate costs that we have. And then if we have tiered water purchases later or anything like that, that we can attribute to it, we can maybe make those adjustments at that time. The other thing is a lot of these are going to be the money that we're calculating for people that are using over a certain tier level. We all know that that's going to be based on generally the size of their lot. So people have come in here, they've invested in their property, they've put money into their property, and they would kind of like to keep things alive. And I'm sure, and I know that a lot of people are working on things already to pull their yards out, and so that they have a lot of drought tolerance, which right there off the top tells you that that tier 4 may very well be cut in half, if not more. So already you're looking at that. That's going to be a problem for collecting the money we need to this district. The people that are on the larger lots already pay $400 to $1,000 more in their Mello-Roos bonds, which was for funding of this district. So they basically already do carry more of this district, but now they're going to be asked to shoulder the burden of the extra $275,000. And if we tell them, no, you're going to conserve water, well, if they do conserve all this water, this is going to cut right into the fixed costs. And I think that tier level pricing is more for tier level costs, variable costs. So
Julie,
I really feel like this should be tabled, in my opinion, and go back to looking at the fixed rate costs and determining as a board, in my opinion, let's come up with a number, I mean, that we can at least cover this and guarantee this income.
Okay, so
I
Julie,
feel that
thank you.
otherwise we're going to
Julie,
lose
Julie,
a
thank
lot
you
of
so
the
much.
income that potentially
Julie.
we're having.
hang on, I
Thank you.
got a rebuttal.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay.
but wait a second. Wait a minute. Thank you, Julie, for that. We got into all of this in the October meeting as well, and we understand. So thank you for recapping that. That's great. And go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, none of this is guaranteed. None of this additional revenue is guaranteed other than the base rate increase and the slight increase in tier 1 over current usage rates. Conservation here for us is a double-edged sword. We know that. That is just the way it is. We want to conserve to do better for the environment and do better for California. We were forced to conserve because our water was limited by Kern. And we don't want you to conserve because we need your money. It's simple as that. We are selling a product here, water. So, you know, I agree that it's not guaranteed. This is purely an estimate based on historical data, which absolutely does not predict the future.
And also, just to remind the folks, all of us board members are privy to the contract negotiations that we're involved in. And this tier structure has been taken into account as we are moving through the contractual changes. And so we didn't, come up with this in a vacuum. I want the community to understand that even though we can't necessarily get into all of that.
I don't really
Um,
know.
Julie,
go
can you
ahead.
please let
No,
him speak?
Yeah,
So I just want to remind the community that the contract negotiations that all of us on the board are privy to have also been taken into consideration. So even some of these numbers are going to fluctuate and change when that contract is finally solidified. And none of us know exactly what those numbers are going to be yet, but we definitely have a pretty good understanding of where we're going to be as far as like in the ballpark of. And again, we cannot discuss those with you, but we did take that into consideration in this process as well. And I just want everybody to understand that.
Matt,
Well, and
Matt,
sorry.
Julie,
okay,
right now, the board will
I
discuss
apologize.
this. Wait a minute, but we're going to discuss this as a board in a few minutes. But I do want to get through Chris's presentation and I want to
Okay.
release it to the community to get their questions and comments. And then we're going to come back to this as a board. And just before the vote, you can make your final argument and then it's going to go up, for a vote. And if it's tabled, it's tabled. If it's
Sounds good.
defeated, it's defeated. If it's kept, it's kept. We will go into that in a moment, but I want to keep us on track. So Chris, finish up the presentation and then we're going to go to the community.
Roger that. All right, so this is also a slide from the last prezo, but how will this extra revenue be used? I've heard that question a lot, especially on social media. Again, as I mentioned before, it's going to help us stop regularly borrowing from the Melrose refinance fund that we have. It's going to ensure that day-to-day operations are funded, most importantly, and that we continue to produce water because of that. And it's going to let us have some time to continue these legal pursuits we're involved in right now, which I think we all agree are very important. Without the revenue, we continue borrowing from the Melrose fund until it's gone, probably 6 to 12 months, an eventual interruption of service, unless there's some sort of swooping savior that's going to come in and take care of everything. And I don't know about you, but I'm not willing to bet this community's future on that. I don't think that would be good fiduciary duty either, considering that's what we are. So a little convincing, perhaps. Why should you agree to this? Not pointing fingers, but AC and World have put us in this corner. All right, that's a fact. They aren't subsidizing this district. World didn't subsidize this district. They started this problem. And frankly, we have no other income than us customers, us residents. We'll not be able to continue operating long-term without more revenue, as I just mentioned on the prior slide. We all want this community to continue to receive clean drinking water from an actual water production plant. I'm sure none of us are really enthralled about the idea of giant tanks of water being filled up by trucks. We've also not had a major rate increase since 2011. I think that's a really important point. And again, as I mentioned last meeting, I think it's very understandable that the community would protest a rate increase while World was here sitting on their thumbs. But now is not the time. Now is the time that we have to actually help this district that is controlled by the residents to survive. We are not World. We do not have millions or billions of dollars in the bank that we're opting not to fund the district with. We are simple residents with properties, and we'd like to see our properties maintain or even appreciate in value. The last point is really important. Western Hills is Diablo Grande. One cannot exist without the other. Diablo Grande is Western Hills Water District for all intents and purposes, and they have to exist together. So as long as we're here living here, we have to figure out a way to keep Western Hills Water District alive, in light of the fact that we're not being subsidized by a real developer. That's it. I'll publish this on the website, of course, and feel free to email me if you like, or we can go straight to Q&A.
All right, we're going to go again. This is a minute 30 seconds. At the minute mark, our board secretary will chime in to let you know where you're at, and then you'll have 30 seconds to wrap it up. And again, we want to be respectful to all of our community members. So Zoom user, we will unmute you and you can begin.
Hey, Chris, I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. And also, this is Tony Greenwell. I wanted to also say the calculator was very well served in terms of showing, what the rates will look like in the tier structure. But Matt, you said something that was really interesting to me in terms of the rate structure that you're talking about in terms of tier structure being aligned with the contract negotiations that are happening with Kern County. Is that accurate in terms of that? And so if I can ask the question, what's our progress in that space? Can you speak to that a little bit in terms of just a percentage, in terms of how far we've gone in that regard?
Sure. So the negotiation is current and ongoing. The board has been briefed completely on the proposal that has been presented to us, and we have come up with a counter offer, and that counter offer is now being looked at, and we will see where that goes. But official counter offer has been presented. I'm happy to at least report that much. We will see where that goes. There might be another counter offer. They may accept it. We just don't know at this time. I'm confident that, again, when working with FH&H, the water consultants, it's very basic math. We can see if our deal that we're trying to work through works, we can plug those numbers kind of in and see where we're going to be. And Chris, would you agree that it's pretty positive?
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. And also, Tony, thanks for the compliment.
And so we're not doing this in a, again, in a vacuum. And unfortunately, when you do the rate structure, it has to go by what is current. So when we look at those deficit numbers, they're still pretty staggering. But when you go into the new negotiations that we're doing, there's going to be some changes. And again, we can't discuss all of that. But again, we kind of know the direction we're going, and we can feel pretty confident that if we're even somewhere in the ballpark figure, it's going to be very positive for the district.
Yeah.
And so again, I just want you all to know that we're not looking at this in a vacuum. This board has been working on this since February, when the first base rate structure came out, and it gave us all heart attacks. We've been working nonstop to do everything we can, and we started these negotiations, and so we're feeling pretty good about it. There's still things to work out, and there's still some gray area that we're trying to figure out. But again, if we come anywhere in the vicinity of what we're trying to do, if we're anywhere in there, I believe it's going to be good for the district. I do. And that's my personal opinion. Chris, you can chime in. Zechariah, you can chime in if you want. But I'm feeling good about it so far. And anybody?
No, I agree. If things shake out like we're hoping they do, the picture's a lot better. It's not full, as Mark said.
Yeah.
We're still gonna have some times where we don't have enough money, but for the most part, we will, and that's fantastic. I can't describe how much relief that brings me.
Yeah.
And I think we all need to continue to be optimistic that our development will grow.
Mhm.
And as the development does grow, and as the development does develop, whoever that developer may be, then we will be able to sustain this district a lot better. And, we won't have these high cost water issues in the future once the development starts to grow.
Good point. And to that point, we don't know when that's going to happen.
Right.
And that's where this board is having to make a decision because of that. We have a lot of hope and we have a lot of optimism, but unfortunately, we don't know when a developer is actually going to develop. We don't know when that's going to happen. And there's a lot of process in there before houses will start selling from a development. And so we're looking at short term, but we're also looking at long term, and we're trying to fill in the gaps and do what's best for the community, because we're all homeowners here. We all live here. And so it's a tough decision. Nobody wants to raise rates. Nobody wants to do this. I mean, hello, nobody wants to do that.
Right.
But the reality is if we don't, we're going to be in a very, very devastating situation come next year sometime. And I mean, it's just a reality. And we've told you that this board is going to be transparent. And, you know, sometimes transparency can bring a little bit of fear. It can cause scariness, but I still choose to be transparent with you, you know, and it's there. I believe the reward is worth the risk. I think that we all understand basic math, and giving you these numbers and talking to you about the truth of the situation we're in, I trust that everybody's going to understand that. I just do. I trust that everybody that lives up here is, you know, very understanding of where we're at with all of the information we've been putting out there in a transparent way. So I hope that helped, Tony. I appreciate your support and your comments.
Yeah, thanks, Tony.
Yeah, Matt, I appreciate it. No, you know, from my perspective, you know, I just always wanted to make sure that, you know, and I was always having an open question in terms of where it lined up with the water authority, because I mean, if there's no good faith gesture, then that means that, you know, we're still kind of have a lot of stress around here in the community where people are having unknown. And the
Sure.
fact that you, when you said that in terms of the tiered system and how it lines up with the contract negotiations, kind of made it real calming for me, at least, to, you know, have some pause, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and Tony, remember too,
Mhm.
when you're in these contract negotiations, everything's on the table, so they understand where we're at financially too. And, you know, we don't want to continue to go into debt. So if we're trying to alleviate the debt and come up with a good contract, if we're trying to do all that, the people we're negotiating with, our partners, are also going, how are you going to be able to afford moving forward? Because they don't want to go right back into a debt situation. And so I just want to keep in mind that the rate increase also affects in some indirect way negotiations, because they, you know, it's when you go into a bank and you say, hey, I want a loan, you know, or hey, bank, you know, we want you to give us some money or give us some water in this case, you know, they're going to be like, how can you pay your bill? And so, you know, our audited financials are on the website, and everybody knows this. I mean, this is our partners understand where we're at, and one works with the other. I just kind of put that out there without giving away too much information, but it's important for both things to happen, these new contract negotiations, but we also need to show good faith, as you said, with our partners that we're trying to work with, that, hey, you know, the community is also, because we don't have a developer paying their contractual obligations, and we don't know when that ever will happen again. In honesty, we can hope that it's at a certain time. We can believe that it might happen at a certain time, but banks and water companies and people who sell you water, they don't go with buts and maybes. They want to see facts. And so this board is being put into a situation where we need to make some very sound decisions and very good decisions that are going to help even with the negotiations. So
I appreciate that, but I have one more question, and the other question.
Okay, hold on a second. We need to
Is that
keep
possible?
moving. Yeah,
Is that
you know what,
possible?
hold on to it. We
Okay.
might be able to talk later, but let's get through everybody
Okay,
first.
I'm out. I'm out. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks,
I'll come
Tony.
back
I really
around.
appreciate it.
I'll come
There you
back
go,
around.
Tony. Yeah, just raise your hand again later.
Thank you, sir. All right, Andrea.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I want to piggyback on what Julie said. Some things I'm hearing a little bit contradicting to me, but also maybe I'm just not understanding it correctly. Julie mentioned some things that I was kind of concerned about. And maybe you guys can help clear that up. And that is this increase that you guys are talking about. It sounds like it's only to get us to a point where we are not having to pull any $50,000 out and keep the bills going, but not to pay the current debt. We're still going to be accruing debt. I mean, is that correct, Julie, what you were?
No, that's not correct. I can answer that.
Right.
Wait a second. The negotiations that we're having without breaking any NDAs or anything like that, debt is going to be is a discussion factor, and it may or may not, because I can't give away anything, end up with being a zero debt at the end of it, and we just don't know. We're still in that negotiation,
Okay.
but we may come out of this with zero debt.
But Matt, can I step in here?
Yes, of
Andrea?
course.
Thank
Of
you,
course.
Julie.
Yeah.
I really wanted to hear from
She's
Julie.
right. Well, yeah, this is just the fixed rate cost. That's what I'm trying to look at. If you go to page 9 of 14 and you look at the fixed rate costs, that's my concern on this, is that we want to cover as much of that as we can. And I think that's your question.
But part of that, Julie, also is we also have a 218 challenge issue. And so if we raise the base rate up too high, or even as you proposed last October, to an astronomical $500 for a several month period, and then back it down to 400, then 300, and then 200, and then 100, then it's probably going to get challenged, because nobody is going to want to pay $500.
Hold on a minute. Julie, I never heard you say that.
I never proposed that.
No, that was one of the residents who kind of made an off the cuff number that she was ready to pay. That wasn't Julie.
Oh, I thought you were talking about
No.
having a higher rate and working down.
Yeah, the last meeting I discussed front loading this somewhat and then lowering the
Right.
rates, but I didn't say, I don't remember saying, let's charge everybody $500.
Okay.
I understand.
I
that you
apologize
wanna
for
go
that.
to
It
the-
was a long meeting.
Yeah.
It went till 11 o'clock. It got confusing.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Matt, I'd like to try to answer Andrea's question in a very simplistic manner so that she can understand. Like I've said before in the past, the district currently loses about $200,000 a month. You know, 100,000 of it, I'm just using a rough round numbers, 100,000 of it would be for the Kernville, 50 would be, say, for Patterson, and then we've been taking 50 out of the Melrose to come up with keeping the district operating. Naturally, we haven't been paying Patterson, we haven't been paying Kern. With the proposed rate increase schedule that's being talked here about tonight, it's a variable that for me personally as the treasurer, I can't guarantee to the public that we're going to be able to even cover that $50,000 a month shortfall. And I'm personally concerned about that. So if we do get a current water contract negotiated where we can wipe out our debt to current, fantastic. If we can get something worked out with Patterson where we can wipe out their debt, fantastic. But with the variable tiered rate, it's still an unknown to me whether or not we're actually going to have enough money for the entire year to keep us operationally in the black, but it's certainly going to help. So I hope that kind of makes it simple and understandable.
It just seemed to me, thank you, Mark, that does help a little bit, but it based on the that slide show that Chris gave, I saw legal in there. So that concerns me too. We're paying for legal. I don't feel comfortable. I mean, I feel comfortable paying for water, but not legal. I mean, I don't know why we have to pay for the legal fees that are occurring for attorneys and the current attorney the board has, that, you know, because that was presented as well. I appreciate that you guys need to, you know, do this tier to keep the bills going. But my other concern is that it's not covering anything like that past due stuff. And if you're saying that it's going to cover that, then that's great. But when I saw the slide, it said legal, current, you know, to keep things going, but nothing to go to Patterson or Kern. So we would still be in the same predicament we're in right now.
The legal aspect of it is twofold. We have David Hobbs, who's our normal district attorney, who we have to have legal counsel to guide us through these issues. And then we have the foreclosure attorney, Martin Kozla. The legal we paid for David Hobbs comes out of the operational account of the district. It's the things that you and I pay for as part of our bill, theoretically. The bill that is paid for Martin Kozla, that's being paid directly out of the Noah Roos refinance bond, because we can legally do that, which will be recouped once we go through the foreclosure process, and the new owner of the project will end up paying not only the Noah Roos taxes, but all the penalties and fees, which will also include those legal costs. So hopefully we'll be able to replenish that fund.
Right, that's correct.
Correct. Okay. Thank you, Andrea, for that. All right, and now Doug Rowe. Hello, we can hear
Hello.
you.
Okay, this is a question for Zach.
Yes, sir.
So, Zach, you were appointed to the board, correct? With the
I
help
was
of your
appointed.
father?
He was a sitting board member at the time. I was unanimously voted in
Okay,
and appointed by all the sitting board members at that time.
and with maybe one exception, you have voted against your father? Otherwise, you vote with him as a block all the time?
This is a very strange question.
Well, the reason I bring this up is because as representing the community, 2 of the 5 board members are in the same family. And they always vote the same way. So the board is weighted in your favor every time. My suggestion is that you recuse yourself from voting on this rate increase. And we'll see how the rest of the board votes. Since you never vote against your father, it's would be a better representation of the community as a whole. That's basically my request.
I got to be honest with you, Doug. I find the line of questioning a bit condescending. You're basically purporting that I don't have a mind of my own, that I'm unable to make my own decisions, preponder the evidence, and make sound decisions. I find that's kind of strange, kind of a strange line of questioning to be asking and something to be assuming.
What I'm saying is that since you do view them, basically, it is you might say that it's weighted heavily in the Manning family. So
Doug,
if the 2 of you vote together, the rest of the community has basically lost power in, or the board for that matter has lost power in choosing the direction of the water board.
I'm sorry,
It's nothing
there are
personal
3
for
of us.
you, but it's
that-
just saying that it appears to me it's the Manning family that controls the board.
Well, there are 3
So-
more of us. So there's only 2 of them and there's 3 more of us. So
And so all they
technically-
need is one more vote to swing whatever decision the Manning family wants. 1. Whereas everybody else might have to produce 1 more or 2 more. So basically, that's my comment. I'm done.
Okay. Noted.
All right, question in regards to the Melrose, since you guys have brought it up several times this evening and prior, how much is our balance left in the Melrose that we have available to pull from, since it's accessed so often? Matt, you're muted.
Mark, would you like to answer that?
It's a rough number, roughly about 925,000.
And how much has been taken out in the last 12 months?
The last calculation I did, it's about 1.15 million.
Okay, so here's my second question in regards to that. It sounds like in the last, I would say, what, 9 months since you all have come together as residents on this board, the only solution you guys have come up with is to have the residents of this community subsidize the district. That's what I'm hearing? Based on your presentation, that's all we
Someone's
have.
got to subsidize it, Oana.
Right, but it doesn't have to be us.
If
Okay.
the developer wants to pay, they can pay.
I'm certain if you have a conversation with them, which you haven't yet to have, I'm sure they would have some sort of comment. But unfortunately, what
They
you're
can
having
pay.
us
We
do,
don't have to
Julie,
speak to
I'm
them to
gonna, I'm
pay. They
still
have a
talking.
contractual
Excuse
obligation
me.
to pay
I
us
am
and they're not
still
doing it.
talking. I'm still talking, and I know that Matt talks over you all the time, but now you're cutting into my time. So what I'm trying to say is that the only thing that you have come up with twice now is for the residents of this community to subsidize the water district. And from what I'm getting, it is not to actually pay for anything past, present, or future, but to sustain the water bills on their frivolous lawsuits that they have taken on. What am I missing? And I do
Sustain
also
what?
agree with Mr. Doug Rowe that the whole father-son situation thing is a crock of shit, so.
I'm not
That's
really
all I've
sure
got.
what we're getting at. Okay, you're asking some questions. Do you want me to answer? Are you done?
I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
Okay, you're very clear. So,
We're getting beat
and I
up.
know you're on all the meetings, Awana. I know you live here, but I guess the question would be is what's your suggestion? What do you think that actually if we speak to these people, they're going to actually go ahead and pay the contract that they have? Do you know something we don't? Because I think they have you speaking at all the meetings. Is there something that you know that maybe we should know that they want to relay to us? Their attorneys are on the phone, both of them.
Oh,
She's muted. You have to unmute
he's
her.
muted.
Actually,
There.
and I'm,
Wait,
I'm not, I can't hear you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
you guys, okay, am I on? Can I stay on for
Yes,
half a minute?
you're on,
Okay.
you're on, you're on.
So I don't know where you've seen me come on meetings. I've actually missed quite a few of them because I do have a life and my kids are busy. So in regards to this, I'm not speaking for anybody. I'm speaking a lot of what this community is saying and is afraid to actually say online to you or to anybody else that is regarding the situation because they get attacked. So I'm just going to go ahead and speak my mind. Come at me if you will. Y'all have at several different occasions, and I can stand on my own 2 feet. So when it comes to this, as far as the solution goes, there's a recorded meeting that shows that there has never been one attempt to sit down with this developer. The solution I keep hearing is that they're going to walk away, you're going to buy them off, you're going to pay them off in order to bring another developer in. Who in their right mind would take on?
Who's going to buy who off? I don't, what are you talking about?
You can go
Who's
ahead and
gonna
read all
buy who off?
the messages on Nextdoor that are posted by multiple people in your camp. So once again, who is going to come in and pay an enormous amount of money to subsidize this district every year? And on top of that, not have any control over anything, but continue to pay because you guys asked them to? This is the solution y'all have?
Well,
I mean,
okay,
I'm
so
sorry,
first of all,
Julie,
I'm
this
not
doesn't
Okay,
make
so-
any sense. I'm a
Okay,
business-minded
so
woman
let
and
me
this
okay,
is
talk,
so-
Matt.
nonsense.
I'm going to
Hold
talk,
on,
Matt.
hold on a second. No,
Matt,
hold
No,
on a
you're
second.
not, Julie. He's
No,
gonna
I
talk right
want,
over
I
you.
want Julie
Questions.
to be able, listen, I want Julie to be able to
Uh-huh.
speak. We granted a 1 minute time. Awana, you have spoken your 1 minute plus.
Mhm.
So we're going to now mute you nicely, respectfully, and we're going to let Julie answer you and help maybe bring some clarity.
Yeah,
Julie, go
that's
ahead.
fine. I can answer. You can leave her on so she can talk and that's fine. But I don't know what your suggestion is here. You're saying that we offered to pay off who? I'm not understanding that. I don't know what you're talking about. If you could explain that to me. Can you unmute her?
Yes, we can unmute her to now answer you.
I didn't say to pay off whomever. There's comments been made on Nextdoor and our other on Facebook and all your little followers that, go out there and make comments that they are going to find a developer to pay off AC, to do this, to do that. Whom? There's nobody out there. Work with what you got. You guys have yet to do that. It's
I don't know what
insanity.
you're talking about. Okay, that's
Okay,
fine.
well then
but
get on.
I'm
Julie,
asking
okay,
you,
clearly
have
you're
you
out of the
seen
loop.
any? Obviously, you're in contact with these people. It's very clear to
No,
everybody.
I'm actually not. I've never met
you're-
the people. I just think
Okay,
this
well, with their
cluster of
attorneys then. With their
nonsense
attorneys.
blows my mind.
Okay.
I'm not in contact
Okay,
with any
Awana.
of them.
Okay. I'm
So
sure you're
for
in
your
contact with
you
their
know what,
attorneys
whenever,
because
it's so funny that whenever you guys don't like what people have to say, you accuse us of working for them, being in their back pocket, doing something to that effect. All I care about, as you should as well, is your properties, your families, and your money. Y'all work
Okay, but
really
you
hard,
wanna-
except for some of you on this board that I know don't work. A lot of us work really hard for our money. And the last thing we should do after 9 months of this brilliant idea is to sit on this board and tell us that we have to subsidize you. That is
But
asinine. That is all I have to say. You
Okay,
can go ahead and
that's
mute me.
fine.
And Julie, go ahead and get interrupted by Matt again. That was cute.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're insistent that it sounds to me like you feel that the only avenue that the water district needs to take here is that we have to work with Angels Crossing, whose every parcel is in foreclosure, who is in a contract with the water district that they haven't made one attempt to pay a penny on, who is not paying 1 penny of their homeowners association dues or their commercial association dues. They've destroyed the golf course, which your home sits around. You're in the community with the golf course. They haven't paid their water bill that they ran up while they made all of the residents in the community who were golfers go out and put their blood, sweat, and tears into the golf course just so they can let it go and lie to the entire community. Now they've gone through, I don't know how many attorneys, because I see their third or fourth attorney on the phone tonight arguing for the same thing, that we need to hold an election to get these guys on the water board. And you know what it could be for? You know what it possibly could be for is they want their $16 million. So anybody that I hear advocating for that, it sounds like that's what you're advocating for. You want them to get on the boards. You want us to be able to do that. If they claim they're developers, nobody is stopping them from developing. Nobody is stopping them from paying their bills. The only thing these people have wanted since they showed up in Diablo Grande, which I don't even see them here, is to get control of this water district. And look how desperate they are. Both their attorneys are on the phone tonight. It's pathetic. So I don't know why you're arguing with us when we are trying to save our homes. We've got nobody paying the water bill or subsidizing it under the contract they're supposed to be doing. So please explain to me, as a resident here, if you care, what exactly is stopping them from paying the bills?
Okay, first of all, yes, I am a resident here, and yes, I care. And I, as well as everybody else on this call, we are paying our water bill. We are paying our sewer bill. I have checks to prove it. Who is not paying using our money that we pay for these bills is y'all are not paying our bills. And I know
we are
we're
paying
using
the bills. If you need
you're
to
not,
start,
you
need
have
to
not
go
paid
and
a
look at
dime.
actual-
No,
I'm not-
you are selectively
You need
choosing
to
to
actually
pay.
look at the numbers, because you've said this every time you call in. You ask why we're not paying the water, the Kern County, and you ask why we're not paying Patterson. Patterson knows why they're not getting paid. Why don't you call them and ask them? They know exactly why we can't afford to pay them right now, because we're having to use the money that the subsidies are supposed to be paid into the district by Angels Crossing, who is not paying them. We cannot, if we just go ahead and pay Kern right now, first of all, we won't be able to pay them off. And if we go ahead and pay the city of Patterson, that'll wipe out our entire account. And then you won't even get water to your house. Now tell me why we need to go ahead and take care of that. Why don't you give Angels Crossing the call? There's a June Coleman I see on the call. That's their attorney. And I see Wanda Lucas on the call. Why don't we hear from them and they can explain to this whole community why in the world their clients aren't paying their bills? I'd like to hear that. They're on
Well
the
said.
calls. I'd love to hear from them.
All right. So let's bring the temperature down a little bit. Everything you said, Julie, is correct, but let's move on to Mr. Ellerby. Ellerby, minute 30 seconds.
Well, I'm going to stay here in the community instead of throw my house on the market like so many. So my questions are really simple, probably not up for debate. Does the water district have to do a rate study every so often? Is there a time frame that they have to do it?
It's usually every 3 to 5 years.
So in theory, I mean, I know there's some folks that would love to see this rate increase be temporary, but there's no such thing as temporary rate increases. So in theory, if the clouds parted and the sun began to shine and all this development happened and all of a sudden there was a surplus in the district, the mandated water rate study would show that you're making too much money and have to lower rates. Is that not fairly accurate?
Yes, we can lower rates even without a rate study.
Okay. So whatever this proposal is today is not going to be what it's going to be tomorrow and the day after and the year after that. So that's kind of what my point was.
And Bob, to your point, I know there's a lot of fear with a lot of people when it comes to government entities and utility companies in general, that once you raise a rate or you get a tier structure or something, it's never going to go away. And I understand that fear. That's a reasonable fear, or just the way our government works in general. But remember, we're all residents here and we all live here and none of us want to pay a lot of money. So when development happens and there's 5, 6, 7,000 more homes and everyone has a meter and everyone's paying and we do, like you said, get into the positive and we have a reserve for capital improvements, et cetera. Yeah, absolutely. I think every single resident who sits on the board, whenever that is, it's a residential board. So whoever the residents are, they're not going to want to pay more money. And so, yes, it's very simple for a board to say, hey, let's cut rates. You can do that when we're in a positive situation.
Matt, I want to expand on that with Bob because
Sure.
I need to let Bob and the rest of the community know that under law, a public utility really is not allowed to make a profit.
Right.
So if we get to a point where there are, 1,200 homes or whatever, and we're financially sound, we just can't just keep the rates the same and then have this multi-million-dollar profit. The utility has to operate basically just being not profitable, but you can't lose money either.
I appreciate the clarity, guys. Thank you.
Thanks,
Right.
Bob.
Hey, Bob.
And you guys will all know that because our financials are also public record too. So you'll know exactly when that transition happens.
Good point, Linda. All right. Zoom user.
Yeah, this is Tony Greenwell again. I just wanted to, kind of piggyback off Oana's comment a little bit. And I understand the frustration in terms of looking at this from a standpoint that, there's something that is going on that, in some respects suggests that, and I felt in the initial that there was something going that was not accurate either in terms of the beginning process of this board and how they were formulated. But, I've since looked at it a different way because I think that it's all on us, folks, that we try to solve our problems on our own selves. We have not received, regardless of whether or not the attorneys are on the call or not, they have not provided any input into how to help solve the problem that's been created. And the finger pointing is not helping on either side, and it's not going to do any good. We have to solve our own problems. So let's try to work together and try to do that. At this point in the game here, there's been a lot of bullying on both sides, especially from the pundit side, that I have not really enjoyed a lot of. But I think that where we're standing now, it doesn't matter. We have a chance of losing our water source, folks. So we need to try to figure out how to fix this, and we need to figure it out together. That's my comment.
Thank you, Tony. All right, Mr. Mesquite. Go ahead.
I don't think Matt has any audio. See that? There's no microphone. There we go. There we go. Now you're good. If you get unmuted.
Unmute Matt. There we go. Go ahead, Mr. Mesquite.
Just real quick, has anybody looked into joining the Patterson water table as an option?
David, you can answer that.
I mean, I assume you mean consolidating with one of the other water districts, such as trying to consolidate with Patterson. It's been looked into, but the way that works is when one agency consolidates with another. For example, if we merge with Patterson won't absorb our debt. There could potentially be some cost savings there, but that doesn't really do much for us. The other problem with Patterson is that it's apples and oranges from water systems. They're a groundwater system. They don't have treated surface water, so it really wouldn't work out.
All right, that's all I had.
Thanks, Mr. Mesquite. All right, Gerald and Darlene. 1 minute, 30 seconds. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Okay, timing starting now. I just want to say, as an 8-year resident, that I also initially was very upset, not happy, and not even knowing if I wanted to support these increases or tier measures. I was very happy, elated, thankful when Angels Crossing showed up looking like they were going to be an answer to prayer and good intentions. And since then, I've also come to realize, for other people on the phone who are saying, well, you know, give them a chance. I'm all for giving a chance, but I strongly feel, and I think you really need to consider that if they wanted to show good faith, if they had, and the attorneys are hearing this, the legal people, if they had intentions, well-meaning intentions for this community and not just for their own self-gain, they would do something. Even if they didn't have a seat on the board yet, they would show some type of good faith measure, in some type of payment, in some type of adding some type of monetary help to this community that would say, hey, we're not getting what we want right now. We want a seat on the board. We want to change, but you know what? Our heart is in the right place. We want to see the community succeed. And this is the little bit we're going to do just to show that our heart is in the right place and that we do have good intentions. But because we see them doing absolutely nothing, myself, and I don't know how anybody else can stand back and say, well, we're not giving them a chance, because they don't have to do a lot, but they could do a little, they could do something. And like Tony said, and so many others, it is on us. We've got to do something. We may not like it. I don't like it. No one's happy about it. I'm on a limited income, but we all have to kick in and do our share, because it's either that, or I think what people don't seem to be getting, they haven't either listened to all the meetings or looked at the schedules. If we don't do anything, we could lose everything. And when I say everything, we could be up here without water. We could be up here without, the ability to flush our toilets. And I think that's what we have to take into consideration and do our part until something better comes along. And so that's kind of my input. I see both sides, and I have felt both sides. I felt the same way that some people who are angry are feeling. I have felt that. But when it's all said and done, we can't do anything and come out with a solution. That's insanity, thinking that you can do the same thing and have a different outcome. So, you know, I just want everyone to be encouraged, and I want us to hopefully as a community, like Tony said, try to work together to save our community to the degree that we can, or else we're all going to be out of here because, you know, or bottled water. That unless, and if someone else knows something I don't know, and like Julie was saying to the other lady, I don't know your name because I don't see it on the thing, but you know what? If you're angry and you don't agree with the solution that's being proposed, that's fine and understandable, but then give us a solution, give us your solution, a reasonable, workable solution that can be put on the table that we can consider. And, you know, if someone else has a better way, let us know. I think they're open to that input.
We have about 10 seconds.
I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you so much, Darlene.
All
Really
right,
great points.
Mr. Oliver.
Okay, what I wanted to comment on or ask you a question about is that Doug Moore and I were on the original ad hoc water rate study committee. And my recollection is that we had almost 5,000 acre-feet of banked water. As the board looked into the possibility of selling that water, because it would be worth millions of dollars in the marketplace right now.
Hi, Mike. Yeah, these are all issues that we are working with in the contract negotiations. So again, the NDA doesn't allow us to talk about it all, but yes, all of this stuff is being discussed.
Okay, and the other thing I just want to mention to the people on the call here is that keep in mind that we have the rights to 8,000 acre-feet of water, which is worth millions of dollars. We also have the rights to sewer rights for 5,000 homes. That's worth millions of dollars. So, you know, those are assets that we don't want to give up by allowing the water district to go down the tubes. So we do need to figure out a solution here that we can get through this, buy some time on a temporary basis till the foreclosures go through and we get control of our own community. And trust me, there's people out there, there are developers out there that if we get control, I'm very confident we can get somebody to come in here and we can fix this. But that's what this rate increase is all about. It's just buying us some time. And I just hope that the water district in your negotiations that, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but please, these are very valuable assets that we have. Let's make sure that we negotiate hard to get the best deal and not give the store away.
Thanks, Mike. And you summed it up very well. And yes, we are doing all of those things. Okay, so we've exhausted, I think this is Tony here. Tony, we're gonna get on with, there's a lot more that we still have to do this evening. We will be opening it up again at the end and we'll have you talk a little bit more there. But it's now time for the board to move forward. And I would like any last, I'm gonna go through each board member to discuss their thoughts and opinions on the water rate study. It's an up or down vote, but I'm gonna give every single board member the opportunity to speak. Again, for sake of time, we don't have 35, 40 minutes each person. So maybe sum it up in 2 or 3 minutes, your point, and then we're just gonna do a vote. If it's tabled, it's tabled. If it passes, it passes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's however it goes. So let's start with Linda, where you stand.
This has been extremely difficult for me. I sympathize with all the residents up there who no one wants to have to pay a higher bill, including myself. As as was alluded to earlier, right now I'm having to toggle back and forth between California and Tennessee because I'll be honest with you, I got laid off from my job that I had that I was making. We were never going to move from Diablo Grande, never. That was our forever home and we were never going to move, but got laid off. And then my job was outsourced to the Philippines because of COVID. So I didn't have a choice. So, a laid off person definitely doesn't want their water rates increased. So it was very, very difficult for me to even entertain the idea of a higher bill. But when you start looking at what could happen to the community if we don't do something, then I would lose my forever home anyway, because I wouldn't have any water. And it's not a matter of, at this point, we're working really, really hard on the debt. We really are. Hopefully we have a solution for that. But the operating costs right now without the subsidy, just getting the water clean so that when you go to your tap and you can turn it on, the operational costs, we can't cover them with the current amount of money that we have. If the whole entire subdivision was built out, absolutely we could cover them. That's what a developer does. It's normal. All developments do that. Mountain House, all of them, they've all done it. The developer subsidizes the development until it's developed far enough that they don't have to do that anymore. It's normal. It's all part of the process. The problem, and for us, is that when World was here for 10 or plus 13 years, they didn't develop anything and the community did not grow. So we can't sustain our costs. We have a system that would sustain all of those housings, but we don't have the houses to support the system, but we have the costs associated with it. So it's a catch-22. If I want to sell my home, which really I don't want to sell it, I have to have water at my house. So are we hoping we can come back to California? Yes, we are actually. But I have 8 grandchildren there, Newman and Turlock. So yes, I want to come back. But if I don't have any water in my home, I have no home to come back to.
So where do you stand on tonight's proposal? We in October, that evening that lasted forever, we put your idea into the rate study. So
Right.
where do you stand on this?
Are we voting now?
No, I'm trying to get a kind of feel for where we're going and what we're thinking
Well,
about.
I think that the proposal that we came up with is the most fair for, if we have to raise the money, that's the most fair. That's why we tried to draw it out over the 3 years to give people time to adjust their budgets. And that was what my idea was not to slam us all at the very beginning of it, to give us time to adjust our budgets, hopefully get cost of living raises to help ease us into this higher water rate, so that we didn't get hit all at the very beginning.
Perfect. Okay. All right, Chris, where are you?
Well, I'll keep it real quick. We've been through all the presentations. Everybody knows the situation we're in financially. There is no other way out. I don't like it either. Nobody likes it. We board members pay the same bills. We are not paid for our work here at the district. And even if we were, no one would be happily stomaching this proposed rate increase. I feel it's the fairest, like Linda said. I feel that it is just enough, if you will, to help us buy more time. again, there is no alternative. The only alternative is to not do anything. And or restructure the rates somehow and yada, yada. It might make a difference. It might not. We've already paid for the rate study, and the rate study is official, and we have to pay again if we want to revise things again. And I'm just at a point where we have a solution that will work for some amount of time, much longer than we have currently standing. And as a result, I'm for this proposal.
All right, Julie?
Well, I'm for a rate hike. I know we definitely need one. I'm for a fixed rate hike. I don't feel the same that this is necessarily a fair rate hike, because the fixed costs of just keeping that district open, I think are going to be shouldered and relied upon by tier 4 and even part of tier 3. And I think that doing that, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot, so to speak, because I think that that income can go away. And if we're talking about, we're trying to save our homes and make sure this water district is running, I feel that needs to be covered. We need to try to cover as much of that as possible at a guaranteed income. So I know what Chris is talking about. We'd have to pay to revise it. I don't know that it's that much to go back to ask them to revise something they already came up with back in March or February to give us a comparable. And I don't know, maybe David can answer this, but I was under the understanding that once we have our rate study, we can, as long as we don't go beyond the rates that they put out, we can always go below them, just like we can lower the rates. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I mean, as a general proposition, yes. If you're decreasing the rates lower than what is supported by the rate study, then you don't have to do another study.
So could we use the study that we had in March if we wanted to propose just fixed rate? As long as it was below?
I don't know, because I don't know the sufficiency of that study and how it fits into what the board's proposing. So I can't speak to that.
And when I talked to Rick and Gabe, they pretty much said this is now complete because we've changed it so many times back and forth. It's like, is this it? Are we done? And now I agree to Dave's point, we can lower things, but this is the study. If we were to call them up and say, hey, we want to go all the way back to a flat rate system and all of this, they're going to have to change everything again. And it's more time, it's more money. And we've, I don't even want to get into how much we paid them for this study. But I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it will cost money.
Yeah. So so that's what I'm a proponent of.
Okay.
I just think that we need to ensure that we're covering as much of the cost of the district. And when you look at these, the entire community can go back and take a look at it. If you rely on tier 4, that's $276,000 a year. If that's depleted, that's a big number. I mean, so this decision to me is about $275,000 per year decision. It's not just, $3,000-$4,000 to go back to these guys. I think this is a big decision. And I personally, I don't support this tiered rate structure. If we have something where we have tiered rate water purchase, because this doesn't even cover our water purchase. If we have a tiered rate water purchase, and then you have to have a fixed rate cost plus tiered rate on that, because the only thing that's going to get lowered is maybe pumping and electricity. But when I checked with them, it's not dollar for dollar. In other words, if you lower the income $1, it doesn't lower the cost to run that fixed rate, the fixed rate cost of the district by $1. It's very minimal. So you're not going to save that much money on the district if we don't get that extra $276,000 a year that we're going to rely on, not a lot of customers to give us, then we're not going to get that money and we're not going to lower the costs of the district. So I feel we should take another look at this, make sure we get it right.
Okay. Well, thank you, Julie, for your comments. And we definitely have been tossing this back and forth, understand. All right, Zachariah, what is your thoughts?
Yes, sir. So, I mean, honestly, this has been an interesting journey for me overall, just in terms of the rate increase. And, you know, when I first moved here, I saw the water bill and I thought to myself, my goodness, $165 for water. And I said, we've got to get that lower. But you know what? Facts change things. And when you're dealt a hand, you have to deal with the hand that you've been dealt. And the problem is there's math here. And when you have a developer or a landowner that is not doing what they need to do, we're in a spot as a community where we have to come up with the answers. We can't rely on somebody else to determine our future. We have to make sound decisions. I've looked through the different proposals. I've looked through the different rates, the tier structure, the flat rates. I'm convinced that this is a very reasonable ask to the community. And personally, I'm at the place now, even though, like I said, I originally would have loved to drop the rates. It's just not reasonable. It's not realistic. And we need to put ourselves on a path to be more independent. I think this is a good step in that direction. And I think that it also is going to be showing good faith to KCWA. And we're at the place where we have to take action. We can't kick the can down the road any further. We have to make positive steps in the right direction. Like I said, I've evaluated all the different proposals and when we did the original rate study, and this is something that looks good to me. It's going to put us where we need to be. And so because of that, I am definitely for it.
Matt, I need to speak up if I may.
Wait, did somebody just say something? My audio just went out. Hello?
I need this. I'd like to say something.
Sure.
Because I'm the one who signs the checks and looks at the numbers and all that sort of stuff. And I agree with everybody that something definitely needs to be done because we're sinking quite rapidly and we're hemorrhaging, like I've always expressed over the past couple meetings. I have a lot of concerns about a tiered rate structure because I just don't see it as a secure source. And my personal opinion based on the numbers that I see is we need something that is more fixed where I can feel more comfortable that I know for the next 12, 24, 36 months that we're going to be able to at least cover our shortages that we currently have, at least not having to be forced to take money out of the moment response. So I think this needs to have more discussion. I don't see any harm in having more discussion about this. And I think it'd be prudent for the board to table it for a couple of weeks. I think we can afford to do that. And that's what I'd like to say.
All right, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. All right. I'm going to make a motion to approve resolution number 2021-22. The
I'd like to
resolution,
make a motion, Matt.
Julie,
To table
I'm
this.
in the middle of a okay. Make your motion.
I'd like to make a motion to table this.
Directors, is there a second on that? Motion goes down. I make a motion to approve resolution number 2021-22, resolution of the Western Hills Water District considering an approval of the HF&H water rate study. Also the Proposition 218 public notice and setting date, which will be January the 12th of 2022 at 6:30 p.m. The time and location will be the firehouse or the fire station, as well as Zoom. And we will give those details will be in the public notice that we sent out to you. And the proposed increase in water rate. Do I have a second?
Second.
Chris Blessing seconds. I'm going to do roll call. Linda, what is yours vote?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Julie?
No.
Zachariah?
Aye.
And myself, I am an aye. The rate increase passes. And we will move forward. And just for the folks, we will be mailing the public 218 challenge notice on or before the 29th of November. Because of Thanksgiving, we probably will get them mailed out prior to the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, most likely. But the 45-day challenge period technically begins on the 29th of November for us to have the hearing date on the 12th of January. And but we'll definitely be getting that out to all of you as soon as possible, but definitely before the 29th. It'll be mailed to all homeowners. All right, are there any more reports from any other board member? All right, public comments and items not on the agenda. Again, we will open this up. It will be 1 minute, 30-second comments, and we will get going on that. So Mr. Zoom user, I think that's Tony. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. A quick question. Do we know, based on what Julie was communicating in terms of the fixed rate, which lots for tier 4 would be impacted in that $200,000 plus dollar range? Do we know how many lots would be impacted? Is that something that Julie, you would know?
I'm not sure it breaks down per parcel, that I have that information on top of my head. But when we came out in February with the original, that was the flat rate study. And that was putting our money clear. I mean, we all had heart attacks on that. And of course, we don't have to go that high, but even at any type of an amount, it was going to be very steep on everyone. And that's why we've chosen to go this route.
Yeah, I was just curious in terms of.
We'll make a note of your question, and we'll see if we can get back to you on that. Our board secretary, can you just ask the question one more time, and then we'll write it down?
Julie, did you understand my question?
I understand your question, and it's going to be less than a third of the community. Less than a third of.
What are you saying,
overall,
Julie?
I think the whole, pardon?
Are you saying less than a third of the community will end up in tier 4?
Yes.
That's what he's asking. I think it's significantly less than a third.
Yeah, I think our rate
I do
study
too.
people show it lower than that.
Yeah.
I think it's on an average less than 65 users. We're going to rely on 65 users to produce $279,000. I'm just telling you, I really don't feel that's going to happen. So I think this rate increase that we're proposing.
Okay, Julie, I got it. We got it. We got it. Let's just
I'm
move
sorry, I can
forward.
speak, Matt. This rate increase, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's going to bring the income
Julie,
to the district
Julie,
that we need.
Just a second. You know, I mean, this is kind of the question. I just want to take back a little time if I can. I just want to ask the question in terms of the number, because I was curious about that in terms of where it was impacted. That was one of the questions that I really wanted to know, because it seems like it was really very important for you to speak to it in terms of flat rate. So I just really wanted to know what that was. And it doesn't, in my opinion, it just seems
You have about
like
15 seconds.
Okay, thank you. You know, I should get some time back actually, because I was kind of interrupted.
Take 30
That's
seconds.
okay.
Take 30
That's
seconds.
okay. Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. But because my question was answered, I'll do some more research around what was stated, and I'll bring it forward on the. I'll hit somebody up privately about it.
Cool.
I have
Thanks.
some other questions. I have some other questions about it.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, Tony. All right. No more questions. We're going to make a motion to adjourn. Oh, our December 8th is our next meeting. December 8th, 2021 will be the regular meeting we're going to adjourn to. So motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Good night, everyone. Thanks for showing up. Thanks, Linda. Have a great evening.
You too.